My name is Oliver Pickard, and I've always dreamed of building my own car, together with my aerospace engineer and rallyist dad, Andrew.
Hello.
I found the perfect project.
This is my Cox GTM.
The remains of one of only 800 made.
And that looks bad, but when you look at it from the inside, it's even worse.
Crashed, fire damaged, rusted, unrestorable. We aren't just modifying, but completely re-engineering. We aren't just bolting on parts, we are making the tools that fabricate the parts to build my dream car. Bespoke, one of one. This is Project Mosquito. Hello!
Hello!
And welcome to the workshop. In last week's video, we had a little bit of a to-do.
Yeah, basically, when we dropped the car, we took the springs off the car and dropped it down onto the bump stops with the shock absorber.
Literally dropped.
Yeah, and as the shock absorbers compressed and hit the bump stops, so did the diff.
So in this week's video, we're going to sort that out. What am I catching on? I'm catching on. Can't. Okay, so after last week, when theory and reality didn't quite line up, I had a crisis of faith, and we've been through all of our geometry again. Now, that's how we know how all of this happened. In doing so, we've figured out how to sort it out, and that we have a motion ratio of 1-to-1 between diff clearance and our shock mount length. So extending the shock mount 10 mil would give us 10 mil more diff clearance when the car is on the bump stops. So we made some little strips that are 30 mil long, whacked them in, took the springs out, dropped it on the ground. We then have 30 mil ground clearance. Superb. So we've decided that we're going to extend it 40 millimeters. This will not change our suspension geometry at all, but what it does change is the shock geometry. And we've realized that obviously these aren't the springs that we're going to be using, but it has given us a benefit. And in the future, we'll put a helper spring in and sort all of our ride heights out. Then we're also going to put a helper spring in the front as well, which is a little tiny spring so that when the suspension is fully unloaded, the spring doesn't rattle around, basically. And that gives you lots of sag, and lots of sag is good, because when your wheel falls in a hole, your car doesn't fall in the hole along with it. But what it does change is the spring rate, and that's about it. But we're just going 40 mil longer. Rather than making a box, squish it in vise. The diameter of that is smaller than the inner diameter of this. We squish it in a vise so it's got two flats on it. It's not welded all the way around. It's damn near a box, and we just weld them in. So I'm going to have a look next door and see if there is any tube. If it's right, it's my fault. If it's wrong, it's also my fault. Right, because the volume of a tube does not change when you crush it, that now should pop straight over there. like that. It's got a hat on. There we go. Now, it won't want to rotate much, but that's okay, because we can now cut 2 little chamfers in this edge and make it look pretty. I don't quite know how I got that perfectly in the centre, but I've somehow managed it. What's up?
Don't think you move.
Oh, here we go. Somebody asked why we wear cogs in the workshop.
I've just stood on it.
No, I started wearing clogs years ago. There's lots of people who probably don't know this because they haven't been around forever. But I started wearing clogs years ago because they're comfy, and on a cold concrete floor, they're really nice and warm. And they're great if you like step on a nail or something. In fact, they've been workwear in Europe for centuries until recently. And then Dad started wearing them because he had trouble with his tendons because of wearing steel toe cap boots for 40 odd years, didn't you? Yep. And yeah, so that's why the clogs. So yeah, before we fully weld everything up, let's take the springs out and drop it on the floor again. And see if we're right. See if we're as good as we think we are. Well, it's definitely easier to get the shocks out with these new mounts.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I'm getting really good at removing springs from coilovers. Takes me seconds now.
There we go.
Clearance, Clarence. That piece of wood out the way. Oh, nailed it. 2 points.
We'll do a bit to camera.
We're doing a bit to camera. It has clearance. No bumps to you.
It's sat on the bump stops completely, both sides, and we've got our 40mm of clearance under there.
We haven't lost any suspension travel. It's because we had more suspension travel than we thought we had. What we have gained is sag, which is superb. Or rather, what we've gained is droop. So we've gained the amount of suspension travel that lives in drop, if you will. Does that make sense? Yep. So when there's no weight on the car and the wheel drops, it's just going to drop a little bit more, which is great on like really undulating, uneven roads, which is what this car's built for. So it was accidentally better than we thought it was. And in theory, when we put the springs in, because the springs are going to be more upright, we should gain spring rate. So it effectively makes the springs that we have harder. So we might actually save a little bit of unsprung weight because we might not have to go for such a stiff spring. And obviously the stiffer the spring that you have, the more that weighs. So we might save 150 grams or something. As much as drilling a hole does anyway. It all adds up.
We really must get some new jacks.
Static camber is 0.
Move it again.
0.8. That sorts a lot of things out.
Yeah.
We haven't done a proper alignment yet, obviously, but we've done like a rough alignment previously, and we were okay, but we weren't where we thought we'd be.
No.
And we thought we'd have to loosen and realign the front mount.
Yeah, because they're actually on slots.
And they give us even extra adjustment on top. But this is actually where we should have been the entire time.
Yeah.
Automatically. So that just shows where we'd gone wrong.
Yeah. And all it is just
shock placement.
Shock placement, that's all.
Well, that's the thing.
Huge difference.
These are off-road racing shocks for like an off-road buggy. And we're using them on CRV suspension. And if you look on a CRV or you look on like an EP3 Civic, which is the jelly bean looking one, they've got really short shock absorbers. And we wanted as much wheel travel as humanly possible. And we ended up with a bit too much. But this sorts everything out.
Problem solved.
Yeah, it might look a bit high now, but that's because these aren't the springs that we're going to have eventually. We're going to change things and put helper springs in and all that kind of thing. But it's slightly stiffer as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
which is great.
Slightly,
But slightly is enough. If we can get away with getting as much spring rate as we can out of the springs that we have, it means that we can go for softer springs, which are obviously lighter. And that's great news.
Yeah, happy days.
As for springs on this car, we know our frequencies and stuff, but I want to go with the softest possible spring combination, which might take a little bit of testing and trial and error.
Yeah.
And we want to get it really dialed in. So that'll take some testing and stuff once the car's utterly complete. Because, like I said, at this stage, it's impossible to know what your weight will be and what your weight balance will be. A lot of people keep asking me what the weight balance is going to be.
Yeah, the split, front to rear split.
Yeah, and we can adjust it slightly by moving things like the windscreen washer bottle, which I know that sounds silly, but windscreen washer bottle holds a litre of water nearly. So that's a kilo. The battery, which will be a super lightweight one, like we can move things like that about in the car to get the weight either more forward or more rearward. But we want a slightly rearward weight balance because such a short mid-engine car has a really small, moment of polar inertia, yeah? So basically it wants to spin like a top. There's a really good video of a GT40 crashing at Goodwood. And it basically spins like this. It goes like, it does the Mission Impossible 2 thing. Yeah. But a mid-engine car does that. It wants to spin like a top. The way that you stop it spinning like a top is to shift the weight either more forward or more rearward. You don't want perfect 50-50 split. Because like in a front-engine car that has 50-50, you've still got that big lump there that's going to pull you straight even though the weight balance is
And they're set up to understeer anyway.
Yeah, but it's the difference between the centre of weight and your actual weight balance.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
superb.
what makes a good rally car is you always know what it's going to do.
Yeah, predictability is everything. And in this, predictability is the life you save may be your own. But yeah, super happy. So it were a lot of work that for 2 small tubes.
Yeah, but it's been a nice, neat job.
I like the way they look. I actually prefer them to the old ones.
And get them all welded in there.
Yep, and the reason why I went for tubing rather than making a box is a box would have had 4 welds in it, and it's a very small thing to have 4 welds in it.
Yeah.
And then to have to kind of smooth out all your welds and stuff, because then you can't get your coil over in and all that. And so I said, well, let's just slip a tube over the top. Obviously, we had to adapt the tube a bit, but the tube's a lot stronger than a welded box.
Yeah, and it's not welded at all because it's seamless tube.
Exactly. So there's no actual weak point in the tube, which is superb. So it hasn't changed the weight balance much. And if we can get away with running lighter springs, because the spring's more sat up, then we might have actually lost weight, not gained it effectively. So yeah, superb. Well, it might be a little bit of a shorter video, this one, but there was a lot of working out that went into it, wasn't there?
Yeah, we've checked everything out. We've checked all the geometry. Everything's bob on as it was. The only difference is now we've actually got 40 mil of ground clearance under the diff at full compression.
So everything is as it was in our drawings, basically, and it's all correct, which is superb. It was a combination of factors that led us there, but the fact is that we've sorted it, and that's why it's really worth. At one point, I was racking my brains to think out, like, hang on a minute, we've tested it without the engine in, we've tested it with the engine in on the chassis table and all this, none of it made sense, because we've tested it every single way, but putting it all in, taking the shocks off and dropping it off the jack. And until you do that, you just simply don't know. I wish I'd dropped it off the jack a little bit softer.
No damage done.
No damage done. And like I said, everything's fine. And you haven't completely welded the shock mounts, haven't you?
No,
Have you?
I've got to weld the back, but when we take the engine out again and I'll just finish it all off then.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to get to as it is.
You can weld it, but you can't weld it nicely. So Dad wants to wait, but it's more than strong enough as it is for now. And then in the future, next time we take the engine out, that'll just weld it up. But yeah, next episode, I'm scared to say it, because every time I say next episode, center console and heater thing, it all goes awry. But next episode, center console and heater mount thing, which means we are well on our way to being able to sit in it for the first time, which is cool. So thank you all for watching. So give us a comment. Do you like the new shock mounts compared to the old ones? The fact is that the new ones work and the old ones didn't. But what do you think? Like I say, it might be a bit of a shorter video. This I have no idea. Until I edit it, I don't know. But yeah, give us a comment. Are you enjoying this new series of videos? Have you just found the channel? Let us know. And if you want to help the channel, the best thing to do is to click like and recommend these videos to your friends on forums and social media and stuff like that. Yep. We don't have a Patreon or anything, do we?
No. And if you want to know how we've got this, the story so far, you can actually go back to episode 1 and watch them all the way through.
There'll be a playlist that is every single Mosquito video in one. In fact, there's loads of people keep messaging me and they're binge watching the episodes because they're finding like the latest one and then going back, and it's super cool to hear from you all. So yeah, there'll be a playlist somewhere on the screen. There'll be a button that will sign my face. That button will subscribe you to this YouTube channel. And like I said, best ways to help us: click like, recommend these videos to your friend, leave us a comment and tell us what you think, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all for watching. Please be awesome to each other, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.